Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SOM TV podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wise. On today's episode, we are traveling to the medieval village of Saint-Émilion on the right bank of Boüard. We're going to speak with the CEO of Château Angélus, Stéphanie de Boüard, and how she went from being a little girl growing up in this small medieval town where everybody knew who she was, to the London finance world, back to running her family's business with all the pressure in the world on her. This is a great conversation. Before I speak with Stéphanie, I want to remind everybody listening, if you're a winery, a restaurant, a country club, you should work with SOM TV. Our audience is the smartest audience and one of the largest in the culinary world, and SOM TV is the best place to get education and entertainment in that space. Email hello@somtv.com to find out ways to work with us. From filming locations, sponsoring our podcasts, or also just looking to gift subscriptions to your members, we give huge discounts to multiple subscriptions for people in the industry. So if you're a winery and want to gift all of the members of the winery, your wine club, email us, hello@somtv.com. Without further ado, my conversation with Stéphanie de Boüard of Château Angélus. On the right bank of Bordeaux, amongst the vines, lies the beautifully preserved medieval town of Saint-Émilion. One of the crown jewels of the great wine houses found in this region is Château Angélus. This storied domain is now headed by Stéphanie de Boüard. She has worked tirelessly to not only continue her family's legacy, but to also bring the revered wines into the hands of future drinkers. Stéphanie, it's an honor to talk to you and have you here. I know you've had quite a busy schedule the last week. Tell me, what is it like for you when you come into the United States to promote wine? What is your day like?
Well, the day is intense, full of meeting, wine critics, sommelier.
That must be exhausting.
It is exhausting, but not as much as raising 3 young boys.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I have 2 daughters myself, and I don't know how you do 3 boys. That would be...
Well, I have good help and a great husband that supports me too.
That helps. Children and wine critics, they're kind of the same, you know.
Yes. Indeed.
Tell me about this bottle you brought, which I am so excited to drink first thing in the morning.
This is the Château Angélus 2006 that we called Le Bordelais. You know, each vintage has a name at Angélus, and the Bordelais is really the classicism of Bordeaux.
Okay.
The classic blend as well. So 60% Merlot and 40% Cabernet Franc. You know, the Cap Franc is really the DNA, the signature of our wines. So it stands in fairly high proportion, 40%. It's also called the Boucher. And this brings this tension, this finesse, a bit of spiciness. It's the backbone really of the wine. It's full of freshness, of delicacy. It's a wine that we can enjoy now that has a long aging potential still.
The chance to drink an 06 Angélus is like, I mean, you don't get to do this every day. So
Not every day.
It's a pretty special moment. I'm pretty excited. Can we pour some?
Of course, and I'm happy to share it with you. You know, I don't drink it every day neither.
Well, I'm curious why you decided to open this particular vintage. Like, why the 06, which is a really, really special one. It's got some real age on it.
You know, we have plenty of kind of vintages, the more, say, oriental, exuberant. I thought this one was really the one that summarizes the best what Angélus is, its core attributes.
Okay.
We're not on a 2003 that is more, you know, that was produced in very hot conditions. We're not in a 9 that is very exuberant, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this is more like the really classical one that has really this length, this very persistent finish. I know you haven't yet started talking already about the finish.
It smells like
why do I
heaven.
speak about the finish? Because the first nose is very intense. It's very aromatic. It's, you know, all these aromas are blossoming in the glass. And this is, you know, great. And that's really the finesse and the freshness of the Cap Franc, where you have this minty taste at the end.
Exactly. There is like a mint. This wine is absolutely singing. In 2006, what were you doing?
In 2006, I was in the middle of my studies, and I had a break for a gap year in the UK. So I recall, you know, after having lived in London between 2005 and 2006, I really wanted to have a first experience in another field of industry. I knew from little that I wanted to run the business one day. My dad and my grandfather, they smiled when I said that at 7. This is Stephanie. Continue studying at school. We'll see that later. But I did not imagine to take over without having left Saint-Émilion for a while, going abroad, learning something different. That's why I asked my father from a young age, okay, I'm willing to join you one day. And then later on, what if I study finance and not enology, but enology, I was really born into the domain, so really trained from an early age. And I was wondering if he would consider that as a hurdle to take over one day. And on the contrary, he encouraged me to continue. If I like finance, if I was, curious to have this skill, it was going to be an additional skill for me.
Okay.
So that's what I did. So I spent then, after ending my studies, I started to work in London in finance. And in 2012, my father called me asking if I was ready, was still, willing to take over to join him. And I was ready. So at 30, I took over from him with a very nice and smooth transition. And, after 13 years now, he's still on my side, helping me to say, confirm or advice on my decisions, on the strategy that I will share with you always. He's my best and closest advisor or consultant in a way. And we've started as well, little by little, I wanted to also bring my footprint on the winemaking. So my first vintage is 2015 as a full hands partition with my father. And 2016 is really the moment where I initiate a stylistic evolution. But, it's really subtle. And I had this discussion with him after having produced the 30 past vintages of how is he going to react?
Sure.
Myself coming, I would like to make some changes. He was really enthusiastic. And I loved that because it was not that easy between my grandfather and my father in the transition. My grandfather had lived during war, so it was not the same, same setting at all. And so my father encouraged me, saying, okay, I understand now your sensitivity. You want more finesse, more elegance. So I make the ratio elegance, power elegance, slightly in favor of the elegance. Slightly
the changes
tiny.
are not drastic, but
not at all. I respect too much the past, and also I like so much the style of our wines that there is no reason for me to make a radical change. Rather, if you take an image picture and you have the high definition one, I wanted to go into ultra high definition, and he got it. As I want to bring more pixels to the wine, and so we started to to work really on the aromatic purity of the wine that I think we're getting brightest, finest, vintage after vintage.
were there any challenges when you took over? I'm curious. I mean, you are, I can speak as an outsider. This is one of the top wine houses in the world. I mean, not just Bordeaux, but in the entire world. I can imagine there was some pressure, right? I mean, maybe you put it on yourself, maybe others put it on you, but not a lot of them are run by women. I mean, I know Saskia Rothschild, who is,
Yeah, the highest pressure that I received was from myself.
Okay.
I'm very, perfectionist. I have a sense of duty, strong sense of duty with, the respect, great respect for the work that has been achieved by my ancestors.
Sure.
So, yes, the pressure was hard. And then from outside, I'd say that people were curious, were looking at me like, who is she? What is she doing? I was in London for the past 6 years before taking over. So people were not expecting me to come back. They saw quickly that I had several projects in mind, that I had in mind Angélus greatness.
Yeah.
And I was going to be, my life was going to be dedicated for Angélus. So people understood quickly. But some people outside, and even perhaps in the family, we're I'm the 8th generation, so there are several shareholders. And people thought, after Hubert, Angélus, is not going to continue on its path. Angélus is not necessarily going to continue on its path, on its trajectory. And so people were surprised to see that not only it was continuing, but it was expanding, it was growing. You know, we went from 30 hectares of vines now to 130 hectares, not all in Saint-Émilion. We have 65 hectares in Saint-Émilion. That's a huge addition, 100 hectares within 10 years, where we produce now, you know, Tempo d'Angélus. It's a wine, it's a Bordeaux wine that I created because I wanted to I wanted to extend the specter of, let's say, the community of Angélus, and targeting also the younger generation and people who wanted just to have a glass of Tempo, saying, I don't have to age this wine, don't have really to think too much of the wine pairing.
And the price points.
And the price point,
of
course. So it's a first experience, a first entry in the Angélus universe, Angélus galaxy.
Sure.
So this was a big, big project for us. You know, we're close to 300,000 bottles production.
Wow.
So many projects, you know, I'm turning towards the future. And I think, to answer the first question, I think people saw very early that I was determined, and that I had my priority, my top priority was to continue to build the greatness of Angélus and uniqueness of Angélus.
Yeah. Not a lot of Americans can say, I'm the 8th generation of something. It's just, obviously we're young, but we also don't have the same kind of memory that you have. When you look at the trials that a family goes through and that wine goes through over the course of, I mean, you just mentioned your grandfather was, you know, during the war. I mean, World War II was a slightly difficult time for that area of France and all of France. When you look at today and people start thinking, well, you know, do people love wine? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? I'm sure your perspective on this is totally different, where you kind of see things at a much longer scale. And I'm just curious, when you look at the success, the dips in wine, the trials, the geopolitical problems that happen that affect markets, how do you look at it versus somebody who's, you know, maybe their dad made wine and now they make wine? What's the difference in the way you perceive this?
It's a very good question. And indeed, I feel things on a different way than a person who's, you know, the executive winemaker or manager, but not owning it.
Right.
So, you know, I am really a custodian of a legacy. I consider myself as a link of a chain with a duty of transmission. And I feel I more belong to our lands than they belong to me. I told you I'm the 8th generation, the 9th generation. My 3 boys, they are already committed during harvest and also to taste a sip of the wine. They love the culture, the history. They are really already into it, and it's part of their history. It's part of their culture. So you don't consider things the same way when you have this legacy and you have this duty of transmission. So no matter the wars, no matter what happened, of course, we live in this world, so we cannot just ignore it. But we have a longer view term than, you know, someone who has many other assets or can swap from one day to another job. It's not our case.
Yeah.
It's our life, it's our lands. And this attachment is really visceral. You know, sometimes I put side to side emotion and strategy. There's no.
How do you do that? Something I struggle with personally.
No, exactly. So it's not possible to put the two together at the same time. There's no room for emotion when it comes to strategy. However, there's room for emotion in my daily life, in the respect of the work that has been done by my ancestors, in drinking a wine. You know, I had this experience that was one of my deepest, memory and feeling. It was in Seattle 8 years ago, and at the end of the masterclass, our host said to me, Stephanie, I have a surprise for you. We're going to share a bottle of your wine on a vintage that you've never tasted. And I thought, you know, it was quite presumptuous to know what I had tasted or not.
Sure.
But at the time, I had not tasted 1928. And the first 5 seconds, I had this, the taste of wine. The wine was still young, you know, still in his youth, like, oh, amazing. And the other seconds, this is more emotional. I realized that it was my great-grandfather's first vintage, the first time I was tasting a vintage that my great-grandfather had produced.
Wow.
So this took me through time, through history, and the emotion was very strong. So the emotion, I'd say, really feeds me and makes me stronger and gives me energy to want to go into the past.
Yeah.
And then when I have to decide on the strategy, then I put the emotion aside.
I mean, that is a much more mature answer than I could give.
You have to live that to be
Yeah.
able to,
Yeah.
to speak about it. It's impossible otherwise.
Yeah. I don't know if you can answer this question, but how did your family continue to control the domain for this long? I feel that in a long business, especially a family one, I mean, I have a family, families can have their issues. But when you mix business and when you mix a long time, how are you all able to keep this in the family and not break it apart?
Yeah,
Like so many that's happened to, or
Of
not
course.
get bought by some other company, or not.
Of course. Well, no one is ever protected against what can happen.
Sure.
So, and I never take anything for granted. We have to remain humble, no matter what can happen. We can just lose anything in one day. So I'm very down to earth. I consider really my mission as a vocation. I live for Angélus, and my family is, when I say my family, I speak about my husband, my children. We're, of course, my father, my siblings, but we're really linked to this history. So when I took over from my father in 2012, I told him that, after 8 generations, there's this dilution process. If we don't do anything, we won't be able to transmit to the following generation. So I started to consolidate the capital and to buy back the shares of my siblings, my father, my cousins. So this is, quite heavy as well to continue,
sure.
because I'm
Delicate too.
and delicate,
Yeah, very
delicate.
Yeah.
And so it's not always easy, as you said, in family. We get on very well with my father. We're on the same page. We understand another, just looking at one another. We know we're going in the same direction, the same path. So with my father, it's easy.
Do you get time to quietly reflect on this, about kind of, I guess, how lucky you are to do this? I mean,
No, but that's another very accurate question. I realized, I knew it, but I hadn't traveled for a while after having my baby last year. So it took me a while to travel again. And I realized again that it's when I travel that I have this time on a plane, or in a hotel, wherever, where I can really think of the strategy. You mentioned the education topic. For me, it's one of the most important ones. I educate my children, the wine industry, the wine culture, but we have to educate the young generation as well for the wine drinking, wine consumption. I hear too often that the new generation will either drink beer, not drink, or beer some spirits, and wine is a bit forgotten, is left aside. I hear too often, wine equals alcohol. There is alcohol in wine, but wine doesn't equal alcohol, and we put it with tobacco, prostitution, etc. It's so unfair. Do you know Pasteur, this doctor, this scientist, Pasteur?
Yeah.
Famous.
Yeah, Louis Pasteur. Huh?
Louis Pasteur.
Yeah.
He was saying, wine is the healthiest beverage I know.
Yeah.
And wine is good for health. And we hear so much, the opposite. We're not saying we should drink 10 bottles a day, but wine is good for health. And this, we need to make sure that people hear about it. And we have to educate the young people going into the business school and the universities, make them taste, and make the sommelier as well come to our estate to share with them what wine is about. It's not about only the liquid that is in this glass. There's all this history, all the emotional dimension, the soul that is, being felt in an estate. So there's all of that go with the wine, and that's the experience of the wine.
I've been to the domain, and I can say that there is no wine region on earth like the Right Bank, and especially where you are. I mean, particularly, it's very quiet, and it has a feeling of you walk around that place, and you can just mean, aside from the fact that Saint-Émilion, this beautiful medieval town, which I was just in recently, we were able to go underneath and all through the caves and everything below. And I'm not sure we were allowed to totally do that, but we did. And but it is just, yeah. Well, the reason I want to say this is also, too, what is it like growing up there? I cannot even imagine.
It's wonderful. Yeah, I was raised in the domain. I spent all of my childhood there, happy girl with my siblings. I was opening my windows every morning on an ocean of vines.
Yeah, it's a paint.
I never get bored of Saint-Émilion, the landscape, the village you described. I was christened in Saint-Émilion. I went to school, all of my primary school in Saint-Émilion. I got married in Saint-Émilion. My children are at school in Saint-Émilion. They've been christened in Saint-Émilion. I'll be buried in Saint-Émilion. I am so attached to Saint-Émilion. Yeah. And there is not a single time when I go to the village of Saint-Émilion where I'm like, oh, yeah. No, I always have this emotion. Yeah. I love Saint-Émilion. We're so spoiled. I was really spoiled, being born in this family in Saint-Émilion.
I just want to close out with some, I guess, tasting notes or thoughts on what this smells like. I mean, you can see I've almost drank the whole glass and I want to pour more.
Wine, so I'm really happy that you enjoy it. I can see your glass, I love that.
I mean, this is honest to God, I don't think anybody would be shocked to know that a bottle of Château Angélus from a really good vintage with a good amount of age on it is like a perfect glass of wine, but this is...
No, it's a wonderful wine that, as I said, blossomed in your glass. We have the fruit, the bouquet of, first of all, the flower, the peony flower that I love.
Peony.
Oh, yes.
Interesting.
It's really the peony that comes out. Of course, you need to double check.
Yeah, I didn't get that peony on the first.
And then after, I have the cedar, the wood, like the wooden box of the cigar box, not the cigar itself, but the cedar.
It really does. I don't know if it's because you're telling me, but now all I smell is a cedar box.
Yeah. And the wine also, is starting to get in its phase of evolution.
There is an incredible iron quality to this wine that is, to me, it's one of the most beautiful, unique things that you can only get. You could not get this you could plant this grape in 1,000 other places and you could never get this sanguine quality that exists.
What you're saying is so true, particularly for our Cabernet Franc, our Boucher.
It's definitely the Cab Franc.
They are located in a very dedicated area on the estate. We had some, so it's the southwest part of Angélus. We had some on the north part next to our Merlot, and we pulled them out after 10 years. Why? They were producing, but never the finesse of the other Cabernet Franc that we have. That really need to have a proportion of clay that is located between 10 to 20%.
That's right. Yeah.
And really, after, say, 30 years, so we don't really use the Cab Franc, the Grand Vin. If they're not aged 30 years minimum, they need to have this finesse, and they have it after 30 years. So Cab Franc Boucher is really a capricious, a delicate grape variety that also need more time to get ripe. It needs more time than Merlot. But when you manage to get it right and perfectly ripe, then you have what you in your glass, the absolute finesse.
Yeah, this is just great. Thank you so much.
No, it's my great pleasure. Wine is about sharing.
No.
Wine is good for health.
Yeah, let's do this again next week.
Absolutely. Whenever you come to Saint-Émilion.
Trust me, be careful what you offer. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you love the Somm TV podcast, please take a second and go wherever you listen and leave us a great review. It really matters, and we love to hear your feedback. We really appreciate that. I also want to remind everybody that if you are working at a winery or a restaurant or any place where you would want to give bulk subscriptions out, we can accommodate you. Please email hello@sommtv.com and we'll get you set up. Also, if you'd like to work with us on this podcast or filming locations or anything in 2026, please email hello@sommtv.com. I want to thank our producer, John Adams. I want to thank our recordist, Jackson Myers, and I'd love to thank Stéphanie de Boüard for her time. I know she's very busy. And I want to thank you most of all for listening. Everybody have a safe New Year's, and we'll speak soon.